especially in the area that we live in, it's very much driven towards band directing. That's your choice, right? You want to do something in the music world. They just immediately push you towards either being a band director or being a music teacher in, say, elementary school or something like that. And I always knew I wanted to be a musician, but I also equally knew, as passionate as I was about flute, I did not want to be a band director. That was not what I wanted to do. How do you build a studio, right? Like how is this a possibility? The first thing that I had to do was figure out where I was going to do it. So I had started teaching lessons on the coast as a freshman in college. I was approached about that actually at a Southern Miss football game. I was playing my piccolo, everything's going great. And then somebody walked up and was like, "Hey, we'd really like to get you to come down once a week and do this, do that at the middle school." And I was very excited about it, but of course it was difficult to schedule. You know how it is, especially afternoons as a music major. It can be really, really tricky, but made it work. And I started networking and I started to notice that the coast was kind of a hotbed for lessons. The bulk of my studio became, being at Ocean Springs. So I had 8 students and I would go down on like a Monday evening and I would teach from 4 o'clock all the way, until I got done. It was tough, but I started to notice that taking lessons on the coast wasn't something that was encouraged. It was almost something that was expected. Do you want to be good? Okay, here's your private lessons teacher. It's very difficult to make a full-time living being a studio teacher unless you get really creative. And that's kind of what I had to do, is figure out multiple ways to make income. For a long time on Sundays, I had 2 to 3 churches that I would kind of travel to at different times, playing gigs, playing services. And of course, every evening I was teaching lessons. And then when my kids got a little bit older and they were in school, I started being able to travel teach. So again, the area that you're in is so important and networking is so important. And I remember sitting down and telling my husband, like, okay, on paper, I'm supposed to make this, but this month I only made this, and that is really difficult, especially when the money is trickling in little by little and you need to pay your bills, right? So one of the things that I really had to figure out was a system that was put in place across the board. Sometimes people don't want to abide by the system, and I end up, just having to say, I'm so sorry that we couldn't come to an agreement, that we couldn't figure anything out. I apologize. One thing that's been great for me is I'm the only one that does what I do on the coast. So I started doing some information, digging kind of around in studios that were close to me, gymnastics, cheer, anything that you're going to do with your child. And I noticed a few things. Firstly, everybody is going to pay a registration fee at the beginning of every either semester or season or year, no matter what. That's going to give you a little bit of wiggle room at the beginning of each semester, or at the beginning of each year, that you can put aside and you can say, okay, if there's a month that's particularly difficult, I've got this registration fee. Okay. And I noticed that it was usually anywhere between $50 and $75. And so that's what I started charging. The second thing I have in place is a detailed studio agreement. It's like a legal binding document. I'm going to sign it. They're going to sign it. I'm going to send them a copy of it. And it's going to say in there every single thing they need to know regarding what happens if they miss a lesson, what happens if I need to miss a lesson, the payment policy, all of the things. I created an LLC, and I recommend that for every single person who is trying to teach, trying to do anything. It opens a lot of doors in terms of tax write-offs, down to your phone bill, your car, your mileage, a portion of your office, a portion of your power bill, anything I do travel-wise, any purchase I make for my instruments themselves. It opens up a door where you're able to write things off to offset the income. The next thing I'll tell you is to constantly network. Everybody that you meet, there is a value to knowing them. I think it's really important for you to continually tell yourself that this is something that is possible. And there are so many different ways that you can make it happen. You just have to get creative.